Hey there, welcome back to the channel. If you've clicked on this video, I already know something about you. You're searching for answers. Maybe you've been in a situation where you gave everything, texted back instantly, kept conversations flowing, and poured your energy into keeping her interested. But here's the truth. Sometimes the harder you chase, the faster she runs. And then something interesting happens. The very moment you go quiet, when you stop over-explaining, stop trying to impress, and stop being so available, her mind starts racing. Suddenly she's wondering, why did he stop texting me? Did I lose him? Is he with someone else? Was I not enough? That silence is not empty. It's powerful, it's strategic, and it flips the dynamic in ways most men never realize. In today's deep dive, I'm going to take you on a journey through the dark psychology of silence, emotional triggers, and the hidden power you hold when you stop feeding the constant cycle of attention. But before we dive in, let me set the stage with a story. Story hook. Picture this. There's a guy named Daniel, hardworking, loyal, genuine. He meets a woman who completely captivates him. From day one, he's all in, texting good morning, checking up on her, liking every post she makes. At first, she loves the attention, but after a while, something shifts. She starts replying slower, she seems less excited, and Daniel, out of fear of losing her, doubles down. He sends longer messages. He waits up late, hoping for her response. He tries to fix the vibe, but the more he tries, the colder she gets. Then one day, exhausted, Daniel simply stops. No more long paragraphs, no more double texting, no more being the backup when she's bored. He goes quiet. And what happens? Her phone suddenly starts lighting up with her messages. Hey, are you okay? Why are you so distant? Did I do something wrong? It's almost like the silence created a void in her mind, and she couldn't stand it. This is not an accident. This is psychology, and today we're going to break it down step by step. Why silence works. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Human beings hate uncertainty. Our brains crave closure. When everything is predictable, when she knows you'll text, knows you'll call, knows you'll always be there, there's no mystery. No urgency, no tension. But when you go quiet, you activate the part of her brain responsible for seeking answers. Now she has to fill in the blanks. She starts imagining scenarios. She starts wondering if she lost you. And ironically, she starts valuing you more because your silence signals something. You are not dependent on her validation. And here's the golden rule. What people cannot easily predict, they cannot easily ignore. Motivational hook. Now, let me tell you something powerful, my friend. Silence is not about games. It's not about manipulation. It's about reclaiming your power. Because when you stop trying to convince someone of your worth, when you stop chasing, when you stand firm in your value, the world notices. And here's the truth. The moment you go quiet, she'll start losing her mind. Not because of cruelty, but because she feels the shift. She feels your absence. And she realizes, maybe for the first time, that your presence was never guaranteed. So stay with me, because in this video we're going to explore the psychology of silence and why it drives her wild. Real-life scenarios where silence flips the script. The motivational side of learning when to step back and focus on yourself. And finally, how to use silence not as punishment, but as a tool for respect, attraction, and self-mastery. Trust me, once you understand this, you'll never see relationships the same way again. The deep psychology of silence. Silence is louder than words. Think about it. When someone shouts, you hear noise. But when someone goes silent, your mind races. Why? Because silence is a mystery, and human beings are addicted to solving mysteries. This is exactly what happens in relationships. When you stop explaining yourself, stop filling every gap with words, and stop trying to reassure her at every turn, she's left with silence. And that silence screams a message louder than words ever could. I don't need to prove myself. My presence speaks for itself. Why women react to silence? Let's break down the psychology. Women, like men, thrive on attention, validation, and consistency. But here's the twist. Once validation becomes predictable, it loses its value. Imagine someone gives you your favorite food every single day. At first, you're excited, but after a while, you get used to it. It becomes normal, maybe even boring. Attention works the same way. When you give her non-stop attention, texting instantly, always calling first, always initiating, she doesn't have to work for it. She doesn't have to earn it. And when things come too easily, we stop appreciating them. But silence disrupts the pattern. It creates tension. Suddenly, she's not so sure. She starts to question, did I do something wrong? Why isn't he chasing me anymore? What changed? That uncertainty drives her wild. The science behind it. Neuroscience backs this up. When you remove a stimulus the brain has gotten used to, whether it's a sound, a smell, or in this case constant validation, the brain goes into search mode. Dopamine, the chemical of desire, spikes not when we receive something predictable, but when there's uncertainty. This means your silence doesn't just confuse her, it actually triggers the biological mechanisms of attraction. She starts craving your attention more than ever because it's no longer guaranteed. Story. The silent shift. Let me give you another story. There was a man named Alex. For months he was the nice guy, always available, always ready to answer calls, always saying yes. But the woman he was chasing never seemed impressed. In fact, she kept pulling away. One day, after a particularly cold response from her, Alex decided he was done, not out of anger, not to manipulate, but because he realized he deserved more. He stopped texting first. He stopped chasing. He redirected his focus to the gym, his career, and his own peace of mind. Weeks later, she called him out of the blue. "Hey, I feel like you've been distant. What's going on? Did I lose you?" Notice the shift. She went from being the pursued to becoming the pursuer. And Alex? He wasn't even trying. His silence spoke volumes. Motivational lesson. Here's the part I need you to understand. Silence only works when it's backed by self-respect. If you're going quiet just to make her panic, you're playing games. But if you're going quiet because you realize you don't need to beg for someone's time, because you're busy building your own life, because your peace matters more than chasing someone who doesn't value you, then your silence is authentic. And authenticity is magnetic. When silence hits hardest, silence doesn't always have the same effect. It's most powerful in these scenarios. After overinvestment, if you've been the one doing all the work, your sudden quietness feels like a shock. When she's testing you. Sometimes women test to see if you'll break. Your silence proves you won't. In the middle of drama, arguments lose power when you stop engaging. Silence is the ultimate diffuser. When you've been taken for granted, pulling back shows her the gap you once filled. Quote to remember: silence is not the absence of communication. It is the most powerful form of it. Real-life scenarios of silence. 1. Silence in dating. when she pulls away. One of the most common scenarios men face is in the early stages of dating. Things start out strong. She seems interested. Texts flow back and forth. The vibe is good. But then suddenly something changes. Her texts get shorter. She replies hours later. She cancels plans. Most guys panic at this point. They think, oh no, I'm losing her. I need to try harder. So they double text, they over-explain, they send good morning and good night every single day just to keep the connection alive. But what happens? She pulls away even more. Here's why. You're chasing what's running away. Now let's flip the script. Instead of chasing, you go quiet. You stop initiating. You give space. You let the silence breathe. Suddenly, she's not getting the attention she was used to, and instead of being the prize, she now feels the loss. It's in this gap, the quietness, that her curiosity grows. She starts wondering, why did he stop texting me? Was he actually more valuable than I thought? Did I misjudge his interest? Your silence shifts the power dynamic without a single word. Silence in a relationship. When arguments explode, relationships aren't always roses and sunshine. There will be disagreements, heated words and emotional flare-ups. And in those moments, silence becomes your best friend. Most men try to win the argument by talking louder, explaining harder, or proving their point. But here's the truth. You don't win by overpowering. You win by stepping back. Example. She's upset. She's raising her voice, maybe even throwing accusations. Instead of matching her energy, you calmly say, I hear you. Let's talk when we're both calm. Then you go quiet. You don't storm out in anger. You don't send long defensive texts. You simply withdraw your energy. What happens? The fire burns out because it has no fuel. Your silence gives her space to reflect, and 9 times out of 10, she comes back calmer, even apologetic. Because silence communicates what words cannot. I'm in control of myself. I don't need to fight to prove my worth. Silence after a breakup. The no-contact rule. The most famous use of silence, the no-contact phase. When a breakup happens, emotions run wild. And your natural instinct might be to reach out, to explain, to convince her to come back. But here's the paradox. The more you chase after a breakup, the less attractive you appear. Silence, on the other hand, does the opposite. It creates mystery, it shows strength, and it forces her to face the reality of life without you. Here's the key. No contact isn't about punishing her. It's about healing yourself. When you redirect your energy toward your own growth, hitting the gym, leveling up financially, focusing on your purpose, you naturally become more attractive. And often, silence plants a seed in her mind. She starts wondering, why isn't he begging me back? Did he move on so quickly? Was I the one who lost something valuable? This is the beauty of silence. It creates gravity. Silence in the face of disrespect. Another scenario. Disrespect. Maybe she ignores your boundaries. Maybe she flirts with other guys in front of you. Maybe she mocks your goals. What do most men do? They argue. They plead. They try to get her to understand. But here's the truth. Respect is not negotiated. It's either given freely or it's not real. When you go silent in the face of disrespect, you send a powerful message. I don't need to beg for your respect. If you can't give it, I'll walk away. That silence cuts deeper than any lecture could. Silence when you're too available. One of the quickest ways to kill attraction is being too available. If she knows you'll always drop everything for her, there's no urgency. But when you create space, when you stop being the yes man, when you delay responses because you're genuinely busy, when you're not glued to your phone, you build intrigue. And the funny thing? Women respect the man who's not always accessible because it shows he has a life. It shows he values his time. Silence here isn't about ignoring her. It's about showing her that you're not living on standby. Story: The Man Who Disappeared. Let's tell a quick story. There was a man named Jason. For months he pursued a woman who gave him mixed signals. Sometimes she seemed into him. Other times she was cold. Jason was exhausted, but instead of confronting her, he simply went silent. He stopped texting. He focused on his business. He hit the gym harder. He even started traveling. 3 weeks later, guess who showed up in his inbox? "Hey stranger, haven't heard from you in a while." Jason didn't have to play games. He simply withdrew his energy, and that silence did the work for him. Motivational lesson. Here's what I want you to remember. Silence is not about manipulation. It's about self-mastery. When you go quiet, it should never come from fear or bitterness. It should come from confidence. It should come from knowing your worth. Because the truth is, the man who can walk away is the man who holds the power. Step-by-step guide to using silence the right way. Step 1. Shift your mindset. Silence is power, not punishment. The first thing you need to understand is this: silence is not about ignoring someone out of spite. It's not about manipulation. It's about self-control. When you go quiet, you're telling the world, I value myself enough not to beg for validation. Too many men confuse silence with the silent treatment. The silent treatment is toxic. It's used to punish and emotionally manipulate. But authentic silence comes from self-respect. It says, I don't need to respond to drama. I don't need to over-explain. My peace comes first. So, before you use silence in any scenario, check your intention. If it's out of anger, it'll backfire. If it's out of confidence, it will empower you. Step 2. Recognize the moments that call for silence. Not every situation requires silence. Sometimes communication is necessary, but there are key moments where silence is your greatest weapon. When you've said enough, over-explaining weakens your point. State your truth once, then go quiet. When emotions are high, arguing in the heat of the moment rarely works. Silence keeps you in control. When she's testing you, women sometimes test to see if you'll fold. Silence shows you won't. When you're over-investing, if you've been doing too much, stepping back balances the energy. When you feel disrespected, silence communicates that you won't tolerate disrespect without lowering yourself. Step 3. How to actually go quiet. Now, let's get practical. How do you actually apply silence in real life? Don't announce it. Silence loses power if you say, "Fine, I just won't talk to you then." That's emotional. True silence is unannounced. Stay calm. If you're silent but fuming inside, it'll show. Breathe, relax, detach emotionally. Keep living your life. The secret to powerful silence is distraction. Go to the gym, work on your goals, hang out with friends. Silence works because you're genuinely busy and not obsessing. Don't break the silence out of fear. Most men ruin it by caving in. They send a "hey" just to fill the gap. Hold the line. Step 4. Build a life that makes your silence strong. Silence is most effective when it's backed by action. If you're sitting at home staring at your phone, your silence is weak. But if you're out building, hustling, improving yourself, your silence has weight. Imagine 2 men. Man. A goes silent but spends his nights depressed, waiting for her to text. Man B goes silent but uses that time to grind at the gym, level up his finances and expand his life. Which man do you think she'll notice more? Silence is not just about absence, it's about what you're doing with that absence. Step 5. Learn to be comfortable with the void. Here's the hardest part. Most people can't handle silence. The gap feels uncomfortable. You start thinking, what if she forgets me? What if I lose her forever? This is where self-mastery comes in. You must train yourself to be comfortable with the void. To understand that if someone walks away during your silence, they were never truly yours. And if they come back, it's because they felt your absence. This is not about control, it's about trust. Trusting that the right people will stay and the wrong people will fade. Step 6. Responding when she reacts to your silence. Here's where things get interesting. When you go quiet, she will almost always react. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. She'll test the waters. She'll send a small text, a hey, a random meme, or even a sarcastic comment. The worst thing you can do is jump on it, like you've been waiting all day. Instead, respond calmly. Keep it short. Match her effort. Don't exceed it. Your silence has already spoken. Now your calm presence reinforces the message. You're not desperate. You're in control. Step 7. Know when to break the silence. Silence is powerful, but it's not permanent. The goal isn't to ignore her forever. The goal is to reset the dynamic, reclaim your self-respect, and create balance. So, when do you break the silence? When she genuinely reaches out with effort, when the emotional temperature has cooled down, when you feel centered and calm, not needy. At that point, re-engage, but do so with boundaries. Don't slip back into old habits. Story. The man who mastered silence. Let me give you a story. There was a guy named Mark. His girlfriend constantly tested him, ignoring his texts, cancelling plans, flirting with other guys. For months, Mark tried everything to fix it. Nothing worked. Finally, he decided to shift. He stopped chasing. He went quiet. He poured his energy into his business, his fitness, and his circle of friends. At first, she acted unbothered, but weeks later she started showing up again, liking his posts, sending him random texts, asking where he'd been. Mark didn't ignore her forever. He responded, but calmly, confidently, without over-investing. And suddenly, the dynamic flipped. She began respecting him again, because his silence had proven something words never could. He was not afraid to walk away. Motivational wrap-up. Here's the bottom line. Silence is a discipline. It's the ability to hold back when your ego wants to react. It's the art of letting your absence speak when your presence is taken for granted. And the truth is, the moment you go quiet, she'll start losing her mind. Not because you're playing games, but because she feels the difference between a man who needs her and a man who chooses her. Silence shows strength. Silence builds respect. Silence creates attraction. Conclusion. The silent power that changes everything. Approx 6,000 words. The full circle. We started this journey with a simple statement. The moment you go quiet, she'll start losing her mind. And by now, you understand why. Silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty fuels attraction. Silence reveals strength, because only a strong man can resist the urge to beg for attention. Silence forces respect, because it shows you value yourself enough not to tolerate nonsense. Silence is not weakness. It is not retreat. It is control. Throughout history, the most powerful men weren't always the ones who spoke the loudest. They were the ones who chose their words carefully and mastered the art of saying nothing when nothing needed to be said. Beyond relationships, silence as a life strategy. Here's where it gets even deeper. This isn't just about women. This is about life. Think about it. In business, silence during negotiations makes the other person reveal more than they intended. In conflict, silence diffuses tension and makes your opponent question themselves. In personal growth, silence gives you the space to hear your own thoughts and trust your own instincts. The man who can embrace silence is the man who cannot be easily shaken. The biggest truth: you win when you can walk away. At the core of all this is a simple truth. The one who can walk away has the power. When you go quiet, you're showing that you don't need anyone to validate you. You're showing that your life is full, that your energy is precious, that your time is valuable. And that's why she loses her mind. Because suddenly, you've proven that your presence was never guaranteed. Motivational closing story. Let me end with one final story. There was a man named David. For years, he was the type who over-explained, over-apologized, and over-pursued. Every time a woman pulled away, he chased harder. Every time he felt insecure, he filled the silence with words. But nothing ever worked. One day, he decided to flip the script. He stopped chasing. He stopped explaining. He started valuing his own time. He learned to love the quiet. At first it was uncomfortable, but then he realized something profound. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of his own growth. He got stronger. He got sharper. He built his business. He reconnected with himself. And soon enough, women weren't pulling away anymore. They were chasing him. Why? Because silence had turned him into a man who no longer begged to be chosen. He had chosen himself. Final takeaway. So here's my message to you. The next time you feel the urge to chase, to over-explain, to fill the quiet with words just to get a response, pause, breathe, and remember, your silence carries more power than your noise. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to beg for attention. You don't have to fight to be respected. The moment you go quiet, she'll start losing her mind, not because you're cruel, but because your silence forces her to see your value in a way your words never could. Call to action. If this message resonated with you, don't just watch it, live it. Practice silence when emotions run high. Embrace silence when you feel disrespected. Use silence to focus on yourself and your goals, and watch how the world begins to shift around you. Because the man who masters silence masters himself. Outro. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, thank you for sticking with me. I hope this gave you a new perspective on relationships, attraction, and self-mastery. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you ever gone quiet and seen her reaction? What happened? And if you found value here, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful insights, and share this with a brother who needs to hear it. Until next time, remember this. Strength isn't always in the words you speak. Sometimes it's in the silence you keep.